Guys, I've been reading, I did an audio recording of this book. It's called Big Magic Creative Living Beyond Fear by Elizabeth Gilbert. So I've already done an introduction of the praises, and I'm just going to jump right into the first chapter, which is Courage. Yes, and the title is Hidden Treasure. So I'm just going to read page by page. Forgive me if I go ahead and do extra pages without mentioning what page I am. So, yes. So, here we go. Hidden Treasure. Once upon a time, there was a man named Jack Gilbert who was not related to me, unfortunately for me. Jack Gilbert was a great poet, but if you never heard of him, don't worry about it. It's not your fault. He never much cared about being known. But I knew about him, and I loved him dearly from a respectful distance. So let me tell you about him. Jack Gilbert was born in Pittsburgh in 1925 and grew up in the midst of the city's smoke, noise, and industry. He worked in factories and steel mills as a young man, but was called from an early age to write poetry. He answered the call without hesitation. He became a poet the way other men became monks, as a devotional practice, as an act of love, and as a lifelong commitment to the search for grace and transcendence. I think this is probably a very good way, page 2, to become a poet or to become anything, really, that calls to your heart and brings you life. Jack could have been famous, but he wasn't into it. He had the talent and the charisma for fame, but he never had the interest. His first collection, published in 1962, won the prestigious Yale Younger Poets Prize and was nominated for the Pulitzer. What's more, he won over audiences as well as critics, which is not an easy feat for a poet in the modern world. There was something about him that drew people in and kept them captivated. He was handsome, passionate, sexy, brilliant on stage. He was a magnet for women and an idol for men. He was photographed for Vogue, looking gorgeous and romantic. People were crazy about him. He could have been a rock star. Instead, he disappeared. He didn't want to be distracted by too much commotion. Later in life, he reported that he found his fame boring, not because it was immoral or corrupting, but simply because it was exactly the same thing every day. He was looking for something richer, more textured, more varied. So he dropped out. He went to live in Europe and stayed there for 20 years. He lived for a while in Italy and while in Denmark, but mostly he lived in a shepherd's hut on a mountain top in Greece. There, he contemplated the eternal mysteries, watched the light change, and wrote his poems in private. He had his love stories, his obstacles, his victories. He was happy. He got by somehow, making a leap here and there. He needed a little. He allowed his name to be forgotten. After 2 decades, Jack Gilbert resurfaced and published another collection of poems. Again, the literary world fell in love with him. Again, he would have been famous. Again, he disappeared, this time for a decade. This will be his pattern always: isolation, followed by the publication of something sublime, followed by more isolation. He was like a rare orchid with blooms separated by many years. He never promoted himself in the least. In one of his few interviews he ever gave, Gilbert was asked how he thought his detachment from publishing world had affected his career. He laughed and said, "I suppose it's been fatal." We'll continue hearing the story of Jack Gilbert, who shares the same surname with Elizabeth Gilbert, and turns out they're not even actually related. I know, right? What a coincidence. I mean, the universe just knows how to actually work around us. So we'll see how Jack Gilbert influences Elizabeth Gilbert into her life and this story. So stay tuned for the continuation. Thanks for listening. Love you. Bye.